All right, welcome back, right? So now we're moving on to, we're still doing the time and chains clutch, O2j swap, right? But tonight, right now, I'm working on putting the clutch parts back in. I've got the flywheel prepped up. I've got all the bolts set up, finger tight. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten them down, torque them down, um, get the clutch disc put in and get the pressure plate on. That's my goal for tonight. And then tomorrow I'll pick up filming and hopefully get a lot of it tightened up and get the transmission back in. So I'll go show you what I've got prepped up and walk you through some of the things I've done.
All right, so what I got here, right? OE replacement, flywheel. I could have had I should have just had the light and flywheel resurfaced for as long as I've had this thing apart. I've had plenty of time. Heavier flywheel, I think OE's like 18 pounds. But this one's back in. Well, this one's going in. It's brand new. New bolts, flywheel hardware. These are one-time use. They're torque to yield. I saw someone on talking about installing a Mark 4, doing a clutch, and that these were reusable. I don't believe that's true, but look it up for yourself if you're doing this on a Mark 4 12 valve or 24 valve. This is a 12 valve AAA VR6. These are one-time use, torque to yield. When you get them brand new, they will have Loctite on them, right? And double check when you're putting your flywheel on. It only goes on one way. So a couple bolts might be lined up, but the rest of them won't. So don't start torquing them down until you all got them in there finger tight, and make sure they all line up. So these are 100 Newton meters or 74 foot-pounds, and then a 90-degree turn. So I'm gonna get a marker or something, mark these after I get them, get them tightened in, torqued down, and then get it set up so I can do my 90-degree turn. Also, just like brakes, when you're installing brakes, it come, your calipers come, rotors come with a thin oil seal grease on it to keep it from rusting. Same thing with this. So make sure you hit it with some brake clean, some brake parts cleaner, something like that, so that you can clean it all off so it's a nice clean surface for when the disc mates up to it, right? Also, when you're tightening these down, right, to get this nice and flush, you're going to do the same way you put a wheel on your car. Back and forth star pattern, right, so that you can get it nice and laid on there flush, nice and flat up against the mating surface. Make sure your triple square is seated properly. In here you can see this one, it's a little bit shinier. I started turning before I got it all the way in. Luckily it didn't strip it out, but make sure your tool is seated properly so that it doesn't strip these teeth out. Alright, so nice and torqued, right? All my little marks were at 90 degrees straight up. I did a quarter of a turn. Some of them, it may not look like it, but it's a good quarter of a turn. I've got my counter hold right here, right, that I showed you in part 1. Counter hold set up. I'm always wary of torquing and over torquing, right? Make sure that I'm feeling that click. So some people buy electronic that beeps for them. A little more expensive, a little fancier. Might come in handier. I got the regular one I showed you how to adjust earlier. But these are all torqued down now. I'm going to pull this tool out and then go ahead and line up the clutch and the pressure plate on here. So I don't have anything fancy. On a couple I've used like the Clutch Masters or the FX400 or whatnot. I've used clutch net, a 6-putt disc, one with a Kevlar. This is just an OE Sachs replacement one, right? I don't have much power additives in here. By the time I do have them, I'll end up doing a clutch again anyways. But on the clutch disc too, if you're not sure, it's labeled, right? Flywheel side. Label Sachs clutch, part number, right, and part number. So I'm gonna line this up now. Our clutch is in now. All right, you got a little bit of wind blowing. It's a little cooler now. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening. Today got away, man. It was like 103 throughout the day. But clutch is in, pressure plate's in. I wrote top and bottom because it's only lining up on these dowel pins in one way. So I knew how to put it right back on after I test fitted. Clutch disc is in. I didn't have a clutch alignment tool. I just used one of my breaker bars, put a little bit of tape on it so that it lined up all right. Hopefully it's lined up pretty well. It should be pretty squared up. I'll find out when I go to put the trans in, but that's pretty much where I am now. I can go ahead and start working to try to manhandle this transmission back in. Hopefully my wife will help out a little bit too, and we won't be yelling at each other. Right? But that's the next step. I'm going to work on putting this this transmission back in. So far, this is how far I've gotten just by myself. It's hanging up a little bit. I'm going to take a breather, figure out how I can finagle this in before I go and ask for some help. There we go. I want to say we're about 2 hours later. It went in a lot smoother than I thought. It still was a hiccup, right? I ended up using 3 jacks. So I got the one supporting. I do have the front mount bracket in and the rear mount bracket in. They're not bolted in. But all the bolts holding the tranny block are in minus the 2 starter bolts. Right, I'm gonna go back around and torque them down. You can see this axle cup is now in. Having those out made a tremendous difference in putting it in. One of my buddies recommended me taking them out before I tried taking the trans out. I didn't listen to him. I should have. Brian, my bad. It would have made my life a lot easier, right? So going in was a lot easier. The hardest part about putting this bracket back in was this bottom bolt, right? Not too hard, you just got to jack it up high enough and get the bolt in there. So put that in before the other one's in, right? Then tighten it back down. So I have the O2j tower installed now. I did put a little bit of RTV around the base too, just to make sure it's sealed up. It was kind of tricky for a second, but once you get everything lined up, the little cup in there along with the rod, you get all that lined up properly, it's really just gonna drop right in. So if you're trying to tighten it down and bring it down with the 13 mils, right, is wrong. Once I got it lined up properly and the little cup lined up and got it set up, it literally dropped in, sucked right down and ran the bolts in. So if you got a little bit of resistance, check it out, see how you got to put it back in. Okay, yeah, sleeve cylinder is back in, about to run the shift cables, put those up, trying to get all this stuff buttoned up, and then I will work on putting the coil pack and all this stuff back up here, the auxiliary water pump bracket and all that. And but prior to that, make sure I'm going to torque down. I still haven't torqued down all the bolts on the bell housing. Make sure to do that, and put in the other axle cup on the passenger side. So I am going to take the axle out for this one, right? I left it in there when I pulled it out, but I'm going to put the new axle cup in. Well, not the new one, but the axle cup back in. You can see I got a little bit of paper towel in there to keep it from dripping, but put the axle cup back in, use a long extension, just kind of tap it so it seats that C-clip in there, and then I'll work on getting the axles back in there and greased up properly. I did tear one of these on the driver's side, taking it out. So when I bought a tool from Tectonics, I saw they had replacements of these. This is the part number, and this goes right here on the axle, right on the CV axle. It's a little bit of a gasket, so went ahead and replaced that. I'm going to do the same thing for the passenger side. All right, so I'm working on putting this bracket back up. Putting this bracket back up here. Running this all the way over. Harness that's going to go back over to the throttle body and all that good stuff. The main plug for the engine.
fun part is I didn't take pictures before I took it apart. I know it's pretty simple to put it back together, but if you take pictures of how everything came apart, it also makes it a little bit easier when it comes time to put it back together. I did that. Go back through and watch some of the videos, but I'm trying to knock this bad boy out. So I might do it twice because I'm not double checking, right? So let's see. Alright, little 3 10 mil bolts. So overall, this whole job's not that. If you've turned the wrench, you've been able to knock out a few things on your vehicle. It's not super complicated. It's just time consuming, and you have to have patience. All right, that's the main thing. That's the big thing with auto mechanics and auto repair and all this fun stuff. The mechanical part can be easy. The diagnostic part is the part that's really hard. When I was a mechanic back in the day, I was pretty good with the mechanical. And then getting into the diagnostic part, I'd always have to have the other master tech come over, the master tech come over and help me out figuring out some of the things. Whenever they pulled a vehicle in the bay, I'd ask them what it's in for, what they think it is, and then once they fix it and take it out, I'd ask them what it was that they found. So then when it came time for me to do something like that, I might have an idea of what I need to do to repair what's going on with the vehicle I'm working on. But right now I'm having a fun time getting this last bolt threaded. Right. Another part, a lot of times you don't really get to see what you're doing with your eyes. You got to do it with feel. And a couple curse words. There you go. And just taking a step back once in a while. So let me go get my ratchet wrench. Good set of ratchet wrenches. I got a good set of gear wrench. Man, world of difference when it comes time to do some of these things. Whoops. These might end up coming back off when I finally go and put the intake manifold on, just because these run underneath on the Schrick, and to make sure they're lined up properly, fit right, not pinching on anything. So they might end up coming right back off when I finally get the intake manifold on. Hopefully that's tomorrow, and this thing is up and running tomorrow, and we're back up to 2 cars. That is the goal. So I'm trying to knock out as much of this as I can tonight without rushing through, so that I don't make mistakes. Right. This other vacuum line right here, this is for the Schrick intake. As I mentioned earlier on in part 1, that fancy intake. There's bottom end and top end. It gives you torque on bottom end and horsepower on top end. You set that butterfly to open up at different RPMs inside the little box that's underneath the rain tray. Runs off RPMs. I think it's set to 3,500 right now, and that butterfly will open, and then that intake will run over, and that whole channel the whole plenum will open up. So I'll leave that hanging. Fuel pressure regulator. Now we'll move on to the starter and the battery tray. This is the fun part. I mounted it upside down for a little cleaner look last time. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that this time, just because it's a pain in the butt, kind of running the lines. So I'll see how it is. We'll grab the starter and start working on that. All right, so I was able to swap out this hardware here, right? I used some of the original that I hit with a wire brush, wire wheel, ground down, is all rusted out. So these are just Home Depot bolts, right? I'll probably get a year out of them and they'll rust out. I'm gonna swap those out, getting ready to put this on, but right now I'm about to go put the axles back in, right? Put the axles back in, grease up the CV joints where it goes to the half shafts, the little axle cups, get the intake manifold in, swap out the oil pan, fill the trans with gear oil, fill the engine with oil, and then hopefully we can get this thing started up. Both today. Axles are in. I got a screwdriver sticking in here, right? Ball joints are back in. Sway bar links back on. All right, and screwdriver sticking in here. This is one I bent up for a Mark IV airbag a long time ago, but slid it in there, right, so that I could tighten this up, tighten those bolts up. Those are M10 like triple squares, or size 10 triple squares, right? Spin it around a little bit, throw this in here to keep it from turning, right? I'll lock it in place, and then I did it by hand. Do not put any impacts or ratchets, air ratchets, stuff like that on there, because if that's not seated well, you're going to strip them out, and then you just created a world of hurt for yourself. Finally, moving on to getting the upper intake manifold back on. All right, I got a new gasket for here. I'm gonna try to clean this up a little bit more. Got a new gasket for there, put that on, and then we're kind of in our home stretch. When I pull the thermostat out, all right, to try to get to that bolt, pretty much drained all the coolant in the head. The easiest way to burp the system with that I found with the VR is to pull this heater core hose off, add coolant in through the top, right? Once that top's off, put the hose back on, and then burp it through. You can burp it through the coolant bubble, right? But otherwise, it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's kind of like the A6 3.0T, where it's kind of hard to burp the whole system. Again, if you start from the head, it makes it a little bit easier. Nothing came out really of the radiator, so the bottom end's pretty good. Our radiator's pretty good. I'll go ahead and move on to do. So I got a whole new gasket set. Fel Pro. I've never used this, but it was what AutoZone had available, right? It's got the upper, the lower, and throttle body gaskets. So I'm only going to use one of these and have the others for backup in case I need or do something, whatever. But for the price, it should work out. I mean, a gasket shouldn't be too much variances across the board, but this should work out just fine. So one thing with this brand that I noticed I don't remember the other ones I've used. Right here for the fuel rail, it actually had outlets or olets, whatever, little holes to where you can line it up. So I did have to take these 10 mils off. I set them up on the dowels, right, and then slid it up under there, and it's held in place now with these two 10 mils and the dowels. So that does make it a little bit nicer, to where when you're putting on the intake manifold that it's not sliding around and falls down, because that was one issue with the other style that didn't have these little eyelets here for them. Lining it up, getting a bolt in, trying to tighten it up without one side falling down on you. I've had some motors where these little dowels weren't here, or one side had it and the other side didn't, so that caused a little bit of an issue. But now that's set in, it is a one-time use crush. If you see, it's raised, right? So it is a one-time use. I have gotten away with using it again on previous motors, but always, it's best bet, best deal is to go ahead and swap these out. And another thing you could do too, you can see the differences between where the gasket is and the outlet. You could go through, spend some more time, take this bottom part out, and an angle grinder, some carbide bits, open that up to match the gasket match it. Gives a little bit bigger size, but not that big of a deal. I don't think you're really going to get that much of a return from it, but you have fun. So I take it back. Y'all probably caught it because y'all saw it in the video. I'm making this out with my phone. I couldn't see, it's kind of shaded out here, the glare, but I had the gasket on wrong, so that's why those don't go there, right? So I had to take it back off, flip it over. It's just on backwards. So now, like every other one, it lines up on just the dowels, and now I'll see how well I can get it to fit in there without falling off. Just a slight difference in the condition of the pans, right? A little banged up, right? Brand new. So new one's going in. Once I get this in, I'll top off the oil, put the gear oil in the trans, and we should be right near coming up on the home stretch here, right? So it's been like 103 degrees today. Yesterday as well. That's why I was working at night today. I got to try to get this vehicle up so I can take it to work tomorrow. Hopefully I didn't run into any issues when I installed the Diesel Geek short shifter last night. I'm hoping I have all my gears, and I'm hoping if not that I can adjust it to get them off. But right now I'm about to fill up the trans. I'm about to use some royal purple, and I'll show you this fancy little funnel that somehow I have a hose that just works perfectly. I don't know what car I pulled it off of, where I got it from, but it works awesome for doing this transmission. I got the royal purple 7590, what I've used before, what I drained out of here, and what I had in my my 97 Jetta, 98 Jetta, I don't know, 10-15 years ago. When I had a third gear grind, I used the GM Synchro Mesh. That cleared that third gear grind up. I don't know if maybe I just used another royal purple or another gear oil, it would have worked. But either way, I haven't had a problem with the Synchro Mesh. But I'm going to switch over to this royal purple, and I got this trans funnel, right? But I don't know where I got this coolant hose from, or this hose or whatever, but this little 90 degree is outstanding, right? Because where the front of that, where I got to fill this up, you'll see it fits just perfect. So I got it fed down from up top. I'll maneuver a little bit more, but it comes down, feeds in here, right? Boom, look at that. You're gonna fill it up until it starts to drip out. That's how you know you got enough in there. It's that simple. All right, so everything's topped off. You can see the coolant bubble's a little bit high. It's got distilled water in it. I'll probably bubble out. I'm about to turn it over. Here's a little cloth on a coolant hose. I got a little bit of a pinhole in there. I got another one coming in the mail this week. So after this is all finished up, I'm gonna end up replacing the coolant line anyways again. Right, so I'm gonna start it up, fingers crossed, right? Everything's good to go, and it's not broken, right? Let's try it out. I even had the charger on the battery overnight too.
Man, I was so close. Up and running. That little pinhole in that coolant line, man, freaking is killing me. So I'm gonna check my shed, see if I've got another one. I've got more coming in the mail. But right as I finished up, in came the rain. So close. Right, I think it's 5 o'clock. I gotta check the time. But been out here since about 12:30 today. I was so close to finishing it up, running, good to go, topping off the coolant. As I put in that coolant hose last night, I noticed there's a little pinhole in it. May have been from the hose clamp, may have been from moving the engine up and down so many times. I'm not sure, but I have a coolant leak. Fix one thing, many others pop up, right? So you saw it raining. That came in right when I got it started up and running. Bit my cheek. Things are against me right now, man. So we're gonna check the shed, see if I've got another hose. I've got some random stuff in there. Right, I've got another set coming in the mail. Should be here by Wednesday. So at the very least, I'll be up and running Wednesday. Top off the air, put the tires on, finish attaching the bumper and the signals up front. Lower it down off the quick jack, put that quick jack away, and then take it for a drive. So I feel like I've got all my gears in there. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. It's kind of hard to get into. Reverse seems like it's a little hard. So I might have to adjust that a little bit once I start driving it and see how it goes. But that seems like it's pretty much a wrap. Just a few little things to work out. All right, so it's the next day. It's Monday, right? I just keep adding days onto this thing. Coolant line, backup one that I had. In my shed, I've got all types of spare, random, hoarding parts, right? So this is the actual VR coolant hose. This plastic part for the VR was leaking from under here. Don't know why. Usually it'll leak from here. This plastic piece, I don't know where it's from. If it's off of 18T, if it's off of ABA, I'm not sure. But I'm able to get it work. I just left this hose on, cut it down, and put a lug nut in there and tighten it down. Ran the hose up. So it is up and running right now. Hopefully by Wednesday I should have the other radiator hose from this G Plus kit that I bought. Because if you were to buy this brand new one, this one, wherever, that'd probably be the cost of the whole kit I just purchased off eBay. I've taken it for like 2 little road trips now, about 6 miles, and then one to return some parts. Everything in it's running pretty well. Only thing is I still got to try to adjust the short shifter. Fifth and reverse is a little tough to get into. So I'm going to watch a little videos or adjust. I think I just need to adjust my side to side. I don't know if I got to lengthen the cable or shorten it. But once that's done, it's good to go. Might be able to swap over some other wheels, but I've got some front brakes to get put on next, along with sway bar links and even a rear disc conversion for the brakes. So that'll be coming up sometime in the future. All right, thanks for checking out the video. It's 3 parts. This one's kind of the longest, I think it is. If you liked any of this, check out any of my other videos, please. Like, subscribe, share them. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for checking in. I'll catch you next time.